Good evening, everybody. We will get started. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri, Wurrung and Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nations and as the traditional owners of the land on which we're gathering. I recognise their enduring connection to land, skies and waterways, and I pay my respects to elders past and present and to any First Nations people in the room or online today. Especially at an event celebrating International Women's Day with a focus on balancing the scales, it's highly relevant to recognise the unique and important contributions of our First Nations people and to specifically consider issues of equality and discrimination. As a brief introduction to who I am, my name's Professor Karin Leder. I'm a Monash alumna. I graduated from medicine. I won't divulge how long ago, but I will just say I've been to many 10-year reunions. After my undergraduate degree, I specialised as a physician and then as an infectious disease specialist. I did my clinical training first in Melbourne and then I spent about 3.5 years in Boston. And while I was in Boston, I met someone called Mary Wilson, and she remains my main mentor today after many years. It's thanks to her that I was inspired to continue one-on-one patient caring work that I do as a clinician, but also to think more broadly and to move into community health and global health. So I returned from Boston, had 3 children, and since that time, over 25 years, I've been working part-time as a clinician and now have a long career working as a professor in the School of Public Health and Preventive Medicine in the Faculty of Medicine at Monash, where I started. My current roles include as a research director for a program called Revitalising Informal Settlements and Their Environments, or RISE, which is a clinical trial that is delivering improved water and sanitation to highly vulnerable urban informal settlement community residents in Fiji and Indonesia. I'm also director of a Health and Climate Initiative, which is a Monash cross-campus initiative to examine health and healthcare systems impacts of climate change. So in these roles, I've had the opportunity to work on projects with Australian and international collaborators across STEM. And I've also worked on transdisciplinary programs involving colleagues outside STEM. It's a real honour and pleasure to be invited to host this event today, and thank you all for coming and to those of you online. I want to admit that one of the reasons perhaps I'm standing here and got to this position is because of an advantage that I've had in life, which is that my mother was a professor of mathematics education at Monash. And she influenced me personally, as well as having a national and international role, and was a champion for promoting females to continue to study maths and science at school and then to have careers in maths, science and STEM. Despite this privilege and support that I've had, I imagine that I'm not the only person in the room who still faces some struggles, how best to navigate work-life balance, how to overcome imposter syndrome, how to provide meaningful mentorship and advice to people when it doesn't feel like we've always got the answers ourselves. I think for many years I presumed one day I'd grow up and I'd become glamorous and coiffed and my hair wouldn't be, all over the place, and I'd be calm and poised. And I'm now thinking about retirement, and I have to say I don't think that has happened. But I am very, very passionate about what I do. I feel incredibly privileged. And I'm also somewhat awed to have met my fellow panellists today, and particularly Elly Hanrahan, who, from my perspective, has achieved so much in quite a short time. Elly is a Monash alumna. She holds a Bachelor of Advanced Environmental Science and specialised in global challenges. She recently finished a role, I believe, as CEO of Global Voices, which was an initiative that aimed to elevate the voice of young people and empower youth to galvanise action on environmental and social justice. She now, I believe, has two main roles, one as Executive Officer for the Yarra Valley Community Foundation, which aims to understand generational inequality perpetuated by Australia's economic policy structures. And she is also an advisor to the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action. She also wears a whole lot of other hats. She's a voluntary director on the board of the Hillsville Community Bank. She's a seasonal forest fighter, and she's co-founder of AusRegen, which is a not-for-profit rehydrating degraded landscapes. So with these accolades, Elly, you are perfectly credentialed to be today's keynote speaker, and I welcome you to the lectern.
Someone said doing this mic would be easy. Oh, good. It's working. And I just want to say that Karin and I haven't shared notes, but thank you for doing that introduction because it really perfectly sets up what I'm about to speak about. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on beautiful Wurundjeri country. This land is bound together by stories that have been passed down through generations, and it's crossed vast distances. Indigenous people of Australia have passed knowledge down through the medium of storytelling, and today I will attempt to pass some knowledge, not a lot, don't worry, onto you via the same means. The TV people told me I can't walk very far. Before I tell my story, though, I must acknowledge the ancient stories of this land that have been lost and the stories that are yet to be truly heard. International Women's Day, yes, is about women's equality, but the work will not be finished until we are all equal. And stories are so important. They centre on our society and they shape the way that we think about other people. They shape the things that we believe about ourselves. When I was 8 years old, my dad was my hero. He would work for weeks at a time in northern and western Queensland as a rigger. He would erect the towers that would connect Queenslanders to each other via telephone and later via the internet. And I was the best at climbing trees out of all of the kids on my street. So from when I was young, my path in life was pretty clear. Excitedly one day, I told my dad, hey, I'm going to be a rigger too when I grow up. And my dad kind of looked at me and he was like, well, girls can't really be riggers. And in my dad's defense, actually, he didn't mean it with any ill intent. I think in that moment, you know, he's a girl dad and he was probably thinking more about the long, hot days that he spent sweating in the North Queensland sun doing his job. He broke his body providing for his family and he just didn't want the same thing for his little girl. Innocent as it was the first time that I would remember being told the story of what girls couldn't do. It was not going to be the last. So I'm Elly. I am the keynote presenter today. So do you guys just want to come through? Yeah, don't wait. I feel bad having people just like standing on the sides. You're not interrupting anything, just come on down. I'm your keynote presenter today, and soon I will be joined by the most incredible panel of women. You'll probably be introduced to them and be like, wow, why did they get Elly to do the keynote? And just so you know, I have the same questions, but I've already done the presentation, so it's too late. You're stuck with me. So what did that little girl do when she grew up? Why is she here speaking to you today? Well, I never really know how to answer that question. I've been privileged to hold a bunch of role titles, not all on the LinkedIn. So, cake decorator, children's party fairy, back-end web developer, fundraiser at Monash University, a solar consultancy analyst, a forest firefighter, a community resilience coordinator, board director, policy, did I say policy advisor? Probably. Executive officer, co-founder of Ozregen, and CEO of Global Voices. Now, I blame the ADHD for that list. I was born in North Queensland in a very small town that has since been swallowed up by the neighbouring city of Townsville. And I've travelled all across the world, moved across the country. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. It's not just a bunch of lists, but I've been fortunate enough to meet with members of Parliament, senators, several past Australian Prime Ministers, a couple of current European Prime Ministers, a handful of ambassadors, 2 Governors General, and the President of the World Bank. Now, when I read off that list, in your minds, your minds probably conjured up some little images of what all of those people must look like. What do all of those people in those roles have in common in your minds? Well, apparently you're right, because actually, apart from a single Aussie MP, all of them are men. Today's International Women's Day theme is balance the scales. And I think it's a really important metaphor, because if we are to balance the scales, it must mean that currently they're imbalanced. And if they're imbalanced, maybe they look a little bit like this. For someone to balance the scales, they need to scale a pretty steep slope, pull themselves up onto the other side, and perch precariously on the tip of that mountain. Balancing the scales is going to be hard work. It's not going to be safe. There's always the chance that you might slip off. Before I got here today, I was researching what to talk about, thankfully. And I was reading one of our lovely panelists, Chloe Chang's papers. She wrote a paper about the Monash Nova Rover, and I hope that she gets to talk about it later on. But one of the things in her paper was one of the references that I found really interesting, actually. And kind of fascinating was the paper called My Fair Physicist. And what had happened was the scientists got some middle school girls to read a magazine article about a successful female scientist. And the interesting part was what happened when that female scientist was described in conjunction with stereotypically feminine kind of characteristics. Like, they were also interested in fashion, they were also interested in makeup. And what happened was the girls who read those papers about the women who were described in those terms, everything else was exactly the same. Those girls were less likely to predict that the women's success would last very long. And actually, they themselves lost confidence. They were less likely to be confident about going into a STEM career themselves, which is really odd. What's happening here? And let me just grab one of these because I should have filled a glass before I got here. So what's happening here? What's happening is those girls have been told a story about who gets to be successful in certain fields, what they look like, how they act. And they took that story and they projected it onto the scientists that they were reading about in those magazine articles. But further than that, they didn't just project, but they reflected those stories back on themselves. So this scale is invisible all the time, but it persists, and maybe it's more instinctual than visible for most people. In fact, it was pretty invisible for me when I was starting out. I'm going to take you back to 2013 when I had just graduated high school. I didn't really have a plan of what to do with my life. I honestly saw myself as a very average person, and I thought I would probably just do something very average with my career. And that was totally fine. But in a small act of rebellion against my conservative parents, I joined the Oak Tree Foundation's road trip to end poverty. It was a bunch of young people who were getting on a bus. We were all driving down to Canberra. I say down because I was in Brisbane at the time. And we were going to convince parliamentarians to increase the foreign aid budget. And along the way, I was learning about why this increase was needed. Apparently, Western corporations were moving into poorer nations, extracting all their resources and completely decimating the environment and the livelihoods of the local people who lived there. And I remember thinking to myself, like, well, I mean, sending aid is nice, but like, shouldn't someone be doing something about these environmental issues? And it was on that road trip that I met Isabella. She was this really pretty charismatic girl. She actually choreographed the flash mob that we did in Sydney for the news cameras. And I was speaking to her. She was a couple of years older than me, and I asked her what she did at uni. And as most times you ask a question, your mind kind of lines up the potential answers from least to most likely. I thought, well, she's probably going to say she studies art or English, maybe nursing, but no. Isabella was doing her PhD in... Sorry, I've missed my own cue to change the slides. There we go. That's the road trip. That's how we've gone too far now. Where is this? Okay. She was doing her PhD in organic chemistry, and that was not on my list of potential answers, to be honest. In fact, it was very far off the list. And I was disappointed with myself, because I remember thinking to myself, well, of course, girls can study science. I mean, it's not illegal. But I just saw this beautiful, outgoing dancer, and I told myself immediately a story about her. And I realized it was actually a similar story to what I was telling myself about me. In that moment, just with that conversation, Isabella did something really profound. those scales became visible for the first time, and I watched as she climbed up on the slope, walked to the other side, and made it possible for me to follow her. Maybe I could be the person to do something about all of those environmental issues. Oh, have I skipped something? Oh no, we're just fast forwarding to 2018 now. I'm about to graduate from Monash University with an advanced environmental science degree. Again, I find myself without a plan. I accidentally missed the boat on applying for all the grad roles, and I'll have to wait another year. So, a recruitment ad pops up on my feed. Fight fires for the summer, 6-month contracts available. And I thought, perfect, that's just the right amount of time before the grad roles open again. So I sent it to my housemate, hey, Kate, we should apply for this. 2 months later, I found myself moving out to Western Victoria to be trained as a forest firefighter. Forgot my own cue again. And we spent that summer fighting months-long bushfires all across the state. And my dad thought that being a rigger was hot, sweaty work. Well, I showed him. The next season, I transferred to a different depot, this time in the Yarra Valley. And I can't remember what I was looking for, but I was scrolling back through Kate and I's chat history, and I came across the video. I watched it, and there was my new crew leader, Matilda, staring back at me. And I sent her the video like, hey, this is what made me apply in the first place. Like, you're in this. And what I didn't realize was the controversy that had surrounded the filming of that video. She told me that there was so much pushback before they even began. What had happened was, in a push to diversify the makeup of the fire crews, they'd actually reserved spots on the cast for most of the female firefighters in the whole district. There were 6. And there was outrage. It was reverse sexism. It wasn't going to work. And I was sitting in my apartment in Glen Iris, and I had no idea what kind of pressure Matilda was under. These fire crews are extremely tight-knit. The culture is a little bit iffy. But instead of passing, she said she almost didn't show up for the filming, but she did. And in doing that, I was able to see her in that video. And because I saw her there, I could see myself in the role. Her and all of those women firefighters who showed up for filming that day didn't even realize, but they hiked up a pretty steep slope and made it easier and made the decision for me to become a firefighter much less of a climb. I think we're the next one. Okay, we're fast forwarding again. I really should have got these beats down really nice but anyway, now we're in 2022, right? So I'm an average girl. I have a degree in STEM, and I proudly write firefighter on all of the medical forms when they ask me about my occupation. So obviously I have conquered the awful, ridiculous, self-perpetuating story about what girls can and can't do, right? Well, in 2022, I'm actually preparing to fly to Canberra. I'm about to present my work on community bushfire resilience at the National Fire Conference. I'm part of the Victorian delegation, which includes my boss's boss's boss, Tamara. She is one of the first ever female Deputy Chief Fire Officers in the whole country. There's a group chat, and the group is discussing what we should bring to wear to the gala dinner on the last night of the conference. A message from Tamara pops up. I'm wearing my sparkly sneakers. And I just stared because I was like, she can't do that. She's one of the most senior fire managers in the whole country. Like, how could she possibly? It felt like she was breaking some kind of rule. And suddenly, all of my own assumptions that I had piled up around me about what female leaders in a male-dominated sector should act like, what they should wear. And it was wild because just like those girls in the My Fair Physicist study, I had been told a story about what should happen, and I was reflecting it onto the women who I respected around me. I realized I was reflecting it back on myself. Oh. That's an awful photo of me at that conference, but anyway, there you go. So the scales still exist. The stories that prop them up are still around. Maybe they're, kind of elusive and they're not so obvious, but they persist. And there's still work to be done. But it's okay because we're in it together. To balance the scales, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking work. It can be every day. A final story, I promise, and then I'm gone. It's 2023. I've just been recruited onto the Global Voices team, and I start at the same time as the new communications manager, Lucy. Now, Lucy is super passionate about climate. She'd actually run state government the year before on a climate platform as a candidate. So she was giving me a bit of a run for my money, to be honest. And we travelled to Indonesia together for a delegation. While we were there, Lucy told me a story. 4 years prior, she was sitting in her school's auditorium. She was in year 11, and a girl walks on stage from the Australian Youth Climate Coalition to present to her school about climate change. Almost missed the cue. Her name was Elly. 4 years prior, and I unwittingly, but very willingly, I promise you, stepped onto some scales myself and balanced them for Lucy, who was coming up behind. She told me, "You're actually the reason that I became passionate about climate change in the first place." So like I said, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking. It can be everyday work. You don't need to be the first, and thankfully, most of us will never actually have to be because of the people who came before us. But even if you're not the first ever, you might still be the first for someone else. The first girl they've seen to study science. The first female in a male-dominated career. Their first leader to wear sparkly sneakers. Here's the thing. Scales don't move all at once, and they won't. They shift. And all it takes is someone brave enough to get up, walk across the platform, and stand there, even if it's unsteady. So wherever you're at, my message is to be bold and climb on up, even if it's hard. Actually, especially if it's hard, because you never know. When you walk across that platform, you tip the scales, and you never know. And you never know who might be behind you, waiting to climb up next. That's Lucy and I. I had no idea she was in there. It's 2015. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Elly. That was awesome, and thank you for sharing all your stories. I'm going to invite all the panellists to come up. Elly, you can't go anywhere. You've got to come back up here. While we're just organising the stage, why don't you can sit in whichever order you like, and Chloe, we might start with you to start with your introduction and just to tell us who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Karin. Wonderful keynote, Elly. I resonate with so much. And oh my gosh, you shouted out the Pink Rover campaign paper. That's
Of course.
so awesome. What a privilege it is to be here with you all on International Women's Day. My name's Chloe. I work as a mechanical engineer at Lunar Outpost Oceania, working on the Rover project, which is to send Australia's first lunar rover to the moon. So I've been working in the industry for the last 3 years. And I graduated with a degree in mechatronics and robotics engineering from Monash. And during my time at Monash, I got to be a part of the illustrious Monash Nova Rover team, which is where I discovered my passion for engineering and robotics. And during that time, I also got to become the mechanical lead of that team. So we built rovers and we competed in international and domestic competitions. A year later, I became the team lead of Monash Nova Rover. We were a team of 100 students, and that year we came second in the world at the University Rover Challenge out of almost 100 teams. That same year, I also told my team to paint their rover pink to start conversations about women in STEM. And what's really interesting about the pink rover is at the time, because I was the lead mechanical engineer, I was like, I want to paint it pink because pink is my favorite color. But there was a little bit of resistance from my male-dominated team. I don't know if I could pull off pink, Chloe. Like, I don't know what people would think. I don't know if we'd be taken seriously. And that's when I realized this doesn't need to be pink because it's my favorite color. It needs to be pink because it's making you uncomfortable. And you're projecting some bias here. You think we won't be taken seriously because it's pink, which is associated a lot with women. Not that it's not all women's favorite color, or that all women should wear pink and be feminine, not because of that, but it is heavily associated. So in a way, you are heavily associating unserious engineering with women. So that's why I started this campaign, to start conversations about women in engineering and how needed it is to balance the scales. We can't afford to have the underrepresentation that women are in engineering, which is currently 14% of the industry. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, I did put my pink outfit on as well. The
I
most
love
pink
it.
thing I have. Hi, everyone. My name's Grace. It's similar to Chloe, really fantastic to be here and a great privilege to be sitting amongst really incredible women. Sometimes I do think about imposter syndrome. In fact, I did just before when it was mentioned, because in some ways I feel quite humble to be here. So I graduated from Monash University with a Bachelor of Pharmacy quite a few years ago. And currently I'm in a senior leadership role at a national charity called Jean Hales for Women's Health. I also work clinically as a pharmacist at the Royal Women's Hospital here in Melbourne, so I'm balancing a bit of on-the-floor clinical everyday grunt work with I guess some of the bigger picture considerations. I also am a businesswoman. I have my own business with home medicine reviews, And about 10 years ago, I started my own non-profit or for-purpose organisation called Pharmacists for the Environment Australia, or PEA. And at the time, it was actually the world's first environmental group for pharmacists. In terms of my journey and perhaps why I'm here, the questions that you guys all sent through have really made me think a lot about why I'm here and who am I. A lot of existential questions have come up. And because I work in an industry, pharmacy, where actually women are the majority. It's about 70% or so. But interestingly, you know, in the health system that I work in and in senior leadership roles, it's not majority female. So the representation is quite uneven in certain positions. And it's not unique to pharmacy, but it's something that I've continuously experienced through all the different hats and roles that I've come across. And this theme of balancing the scales is become really important, particularly in the last few years, working in women's health particularly, as I've come across some quite alarming things I've learnt about women's experiences with our healthcare system here in Australia, learning that if, as a woman going to ED, I might be less likely to be offered analgesia, pain relief, compared to a male person with a similar complaint. And that stems from a lot of historical, maybe unconscious bias in health professionals themselves. And it's really made me think about that as a health professional. What am I thinking, you know, when I see someone in front of me? And what's my colleague thinking? And so I'm really looking forward to sharing my experiences and my path, and certainly everyone's path can be quite unique, but hopefully you can take something from all of us today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Lopes. Today, first to introduce myself, in the professional life, I wear many hats, and then just like Elly, it's my current primary role is a data and AI strategist slash advisor, and I also serve on multiple boards as a non-executive directors, including the Environment Protection Authority. That means a lot to me when a lot of things you both talk about, and so it is really my deepest pleasure to sit here and with all of you and then come back to Monash. My journey with Monash started more than 20 years ago. I finished my PhD in 2005 in AI. That was the time where artificial intelligence and machine learning and also data mining was a very niche field at that time. So what actually brought me and motivated me early on and into this field and until today is about twofold. One is about the fast change and advancement in this field, excitement. Be honest, it's hard to keep up with nowadays, and then compared to many years ago when we were only doing that in the lab, doing the human motion recognition. Now changes every single week or maybe 2 weeks. And the second part, which is also I still want to stick around in this field, because that is a belief I always have, is the technologies, especially a lot of things to do with data, and I don't see data, it's technology. Every single data point is a human behind. So it's you, all your behaviors, your information. So I strongly believe that we should create and use these technologies for human and for people, and by the people, and for society. So that's one thing which is, I think, trying to advocate and also try to use my experience or my skills, help organizations to go through the so-called AI transformation. But how do we use AI and the data actually do your transformation and then do your change responsibly? And then so also create real human, impact and with governance in place. So that is primarily what I do. And over the nearly 30 years, and I started my career in computer science. Over the 30 years, I went through different countries, including US, North America, and Asia, and here. So I spent a lot of time across different sectors. I think I had enough time because I worked in nearly 30 years. So across academia and financial services, energy, and consulting, I think there will be, and technology and governance. So one thing I noticed was I was the only one of the few technical women, or actually involved in the technical discussions. And so I was only one of the few women. Or sometimes I was only one of the one woman in the room and in the executive discussions. So that's actually the experience. And I would not say my Asian name, and even my dad gave me a boy's name. And somehow I think this is some, maybe that's in my life, and I'll be working, and I don't think this has come up, but that's worked in this and still working in this environment, which is a lot of male-dominated field. So that experience actually made me to commit on something which is I call, how can I, and I know I work in this niche area in data and AI, how can I actually bring more women into the field? And not only into the field, I want to make the change, how to actually help them stay in the field. And also, can we lead in this field? So that is what my passion on the side, apart from sustainability for AI industry, but more relevant to today's discussion. And I built or I founded a community called Others Tribe, started from Melbourne 6 years ago, and support women in data and AI. And so I think today I'm so looking forward to sharing the stories and listen to everybody's story. And I also want to be selfish a little bit, and I want to discuss or talk about more of what do we do, and in this fast-paced changing AI industry lead environment, and what's the impact to women, and also as a female, what can we do to shape the future of this AI industrial revolution? So that's me.
Brilliant. And why don't you answer that question to start with?
Wow, I didn't expect this part. So, be honest, and I have been advocating for AI governance and ethical AI and bias for quite a few years. And when this AI, I call AI hype, came to reality since ChatGPT landed in our life. And I was a little bit sharing the nervous or negative thinking, although I'm a very optimistic person. And now, when I look at recent data, I'm a data person as well, and so I don't have the crystal ball to look at the long term. But in short term, so this recent AI change, and so previously at the beginning, and we heard a lot of people talking about, say, look, this is going to women's job and going to get proportionally impacted. But now, if you look at how many of the big technology companies and with big layoffs and with all the the developers, and a majority or most of it, I don't have the accurate, reliable data source for that, and still that should be, the validated. And there are a large amount of jobs. I'm talking about job with workforce impact actually is also on male. So, and I became a little bit more optimistic by looking at this is AI, how AI going to be used in our daily life and in our work. Whose job going to replace, and actually what type of work or what type of job going to replace. So I think that is right now, look at the trend, and a lot of job in play that will rely on the human emotions and rely on that so where actually we can manage different teams and we have the compassion and also we can multitasking. I'll give you example why women and so that is actually this kind of jobs will not quickly be replaced, and then you may heard so-called AI agent manager, right? And then so that's a lot of women. Women are very good at. I believe this is a stereotype or overly generalized, but still, I still believe that's true. This is a women. We are still in the stage of we have the advantage compared to our male, the partners, and in a way we are more. We have more emotion and in terms of handling the human interaction, and which is the AI will not be able to do in short term. At the moment, I don't have the crystal ball. And so the other thing is, this is a big change for us. Everybody will face. And the one thing of women actually are good at is we are very resilient. And we learn, we pick up new skills very quickly because we have gone through so many rounds of changing. So this is we play in our advantage. I can see when we start a new training course, and most of the people who raise their hand and say, I want to take this course and then to change, actually to learn, are female. So that is a lot of, so I think we will, we should leverage that is a characteristic, our advantage, or to our advantage. And so the last point, why I'm not very, negative and maybe more positive about. So we are already good at multitasking. I think many of you can manage your household, doing your job, and also look after children and elderly and plan the travel. So you already good at it. You are a mini CEO. So most of us, to be honest, right? And so now if you look at the future of the AI tools become available, and what type of job going to be there? Actually, is the people, now it become an entrepreneur and easier because you have all different tasks and have AI tools to achieve and task, but to coordinate, to integrate them, and to actually have a clear mind and how to navigate. This is something going to be faced by most of us to use these tools. And so I think that as a woman, we are naturally already trained. And so that's the part where to imagine that use the skills and then to translate into your next role. And of course, we all have to take up the learning curve as well. You got to understand that that's the tool you're using. That's, to be honest, we always say, and how many times we have gone through this digital transformation and being a strategist, and I have been on the data transformation, digital transformation, now AI transformation. So the most difficult part is human behavior change and change management. Technical part is not that difficult. So that's
okay. I might move on.
Yes.
Just to ask Elly, I love that metaphor, and I think that's going to stay in my head. Your scales, right? Like it's a brilliant way to think about what we can do to tip things to make it easier for the next person. But how do you give people, or the first person the confidence, the first woman the confidence to step onto those scales? And what would you, it doesn't, maybe not the first, you said it doesn't have to be the first, but there's still something about being bold, not waiting too long. I will say that at the International Women's Day lunch that I was at on Monday, one of my colleagues in medicine, a male colleague, said that as a generalisation, men go for promotion 3 years too early and women go for promotion 3 years too late. So how do we get women balancing the scales by stepping on early?
Oh, just an easy question. I think the only thing you can do is lead by example, and the only person's actions that you have control over are your own. You can't wait for someone else to try and traverse a steep landscape before you. The only thing you can do is, be bold. And I mean, sometimes I think that, and especially because we do have a lot of self-doubt, sometimes the best thing that someone can say to you is yes. One of my favorite things to do is just like ask and kind of rationalize it. Well, like, you know, well, if they say no, then I have done all that I can do and I can go back to watching Netflix in bed with ice cream. But it kind of just like gets me out of my comfort zone, because I go like, well, look, honestly, and it's gotten me so far, just asking the question, applying for the job, putting yourself forward, like, you know, you're at the team meeting and you go, well, I think there's a better way to do this. And everyone goes, oh, Elly, you don't know what you're talking about. And you're like, great, I don't. Yeah, that's right. You guys take the lead and I'll just, you know, I'll go back to being in the background and I won't have to do any work. Awesome. But you'll actually surprise yourself. And so I think when you surprise yourself and you put yourself forward, you show other people that it's not as hard as it seems. But I don't know, Chloe, you have a great answer to that.
I was going to actually ask Chloe, because that's a great segue into the question I was going to ask you, Chloe, which was, have you had experiences of receiving some advice that has really helped you be that trailblazer to be painting the rovers pink?
I think there was a paper that I read from the Global Institute for Women's Leadership, and it says, stop trying to fix women. Because we get asked this question a lot, how do we get girls to be more confident so they can get out there and be leaders and be in STEM? But this paper goes through a lot of literature, programs and books that sort of tell women, you need to be confident, you need to be assertive, all the skills, all the things you need to do to make it. But the paper basically says, stop trying to fix women, stop trying to tell women to be confident to start. You don't need confidence, it's a scam. I've never been a super confident person, but I think through practice and just throwing yourself out there, I wanted to do fashion design and art when I was in year 12. And then one day I saw engineering in a career course guide and I was like, wow, it'd be so cool to just say that I was an engineer. It really wasn't that deep, you know? And then I got into engineering, I was like, holy shit, this is the love of my life. And then I think about, wow, how many other women out there are super talented in math and science, but just have never considered engineering or being a leader? And I think it's because of this barrier of needing to fit all the requirements and be super confident and assertive to make it in this male-dominated industry. But I'm here to tell you, and hopefully you can tell other women, it's like you don't need any of that. You can just walk into this industry, transform industries, and expand those rooms. And honestly, it's something that, you know, it doesn't just happen over time. Like when I did come into engineering, you know, little me was like, oh, yay, it'll be so fun just to call myself an engineer. But it was hard work. And I quickly realized that I'm different. And, you know, the things that I wear are not the usual attire to the engineering workshop. So I actually started to conform, and I would, you know, wear the jeans and the t-shirt to be taken more seriously and trusted. But I actually didn't feel like I belonged more. I just didn't feel like myself. And that's when I realized that conforming is actually so exhausting. And when you do have the courage to just be yourself, even if you're not super confident and scared of the judgment, that you will get over it. And then you can just focus on the real engineering shit, you know? You don't have to worry about like, oh, am I, policing myself correctly? Am I being, the most confident, serious engineer? None of that matters. So that's what I would sort of advise.
That's awesome. So I'm okay with my hair staying messy.
I love your hairstyle. I think it's gorgeous.
Grace, I don't know whether you've got any specific advice or thoughts of pearls that you now live by that have helped you in your career. And as a second part to that, I wonder if there's any specific skills, not about being a pharmacist, but just skills for, I guess, doing what Chloe has suggested that can help women early in their career to acquire, I won't say the confidence, but to acquire the boldness to step onto those scales.
Yeah. Maybe it was about 15 years ago. I was working with a colleague who, looking back now, is probably my informal mentor. I've never really had a formal mentor, someone you officially say, yep, you're my mentor, and you meet up weekly. But I've been quite fortunate that I've perhaps had informal mentors, people I've looked up to, people I trusted, and I could bounce ideas off. And this person I worked with said to me, as I was sitting on the fence, which I think is one lesson I've learned, is, as Chloe's highlighted, you don't have to be fully 100% confident about something, and that's something I've probably learned, because I think when you are sitting on the fence, it actually is very stressful. If you slightly want to do something, it's actually a better way to just make the decision and do it. But this person, I was just mulling over, oh, should I do this, should I do that? And what he said to me was, well, whatever you put your mind to, you'll be very good at it. And that's all he said. And I found that very powerful, because it means that actually I can do anything. I just need to actually commit to it. And once you've committed, that's it. That is your path. Sure, you might change side to side, but and it's with that I often look back to if I'm undecided about something, or I'm not sure, should I put my hand up for this? Oh, what does that person think if I should do that? And I just go back to that sentence, and it re-grounds me, I guess, to, well, Grace, this is you, this is your career, this is your path. What do I want to do? Okay, I want to do that. Then it's possible. And there's a lot of, mental chatter. We all have it, isn't it? The mind's so busy telling us what we can't do. It's like this little gremlin in there constantly talking. And then there's this other one saying, oh, no, you can do it, you can do it. And I think it's really about reasoning with yourself and realising that, yes, if you do decide that, then that is the path. There's no right or wrong in this. In terms of skill set, I mean, apart from the industry you're in, obviously there's some practical skills you need. Apart from those, looking back, I think the art of communication is key. In my personal experience, I feel that it's really allowed me to influence, I guess, situations. Influence to get things I want sometimes, whether that's at work or otherwise. And it's really been the crux of being able to move forward. And I guess I've been quite fortunate in my career. I did have 9 years working with an organisation called NPS Medicine Wise, which is now closed. But in that role there, I actually received some training in using evidence and data to influence conversations, and it made me think a lot about how using this art of communication, whether it's verbal or written or in other forms, becomes a really important asset to have that is transferable to everywhere you are. And that applies to your home life, applies to your social situation, applies to your professional life. I would say I would rate that skill really, really highly.
Elly, I'm going to ask you another question. And as I was thinking about this question, I was haunted by a memory that I have. I have 3 sons. My oldest son, on his first day of kinder, I was the last mum to pick him up. He was like the tiny little 3-year-old in the room, trying not to let the tears come out when everyone else had been picked up. He's now 23, so this memory has been haunting me for 20 years. And it brings me to the question of you're juggling lots of different jobs now, lots of different things that you do. I think many of us juggle lots of things, whether it's family and or work and all the things that we do. And you've spoken about being a champion and of having women being hungry for opportunities. But how do you juggle being hungry for opportunities with not being so overwhelmed and overworked?
I don't have a great answer to that question. I'm sorry, Karin. And I don't think any mother who has a full career and, all of the other stuff, the household management and the travel planning, I don't know if anyone would have a good way to answer it. Like, we just do it and it has to get done. Like, I am sort of a sucker for saying yes to things when maybe I should say no, but I hate the idea of letting people down, and I just kind of have figured out that, if you say yes and you have to do it, you just have to get it done. And I think there's a lot of pressure on women to say yes to things, and maybe I should get better at saying no, but if you are hungry for an opportunity, you can't let that go. And I don't think anyone ever should, but I feel like women have been socialised to put other people first, and, the family's busy, or this needs this, or whatever. And I just feel like it's such a waste of talent and opportunity, and our society, we're going through a pretty disruptive time. Even outside of AI and all of the, things, we've got some really crazy people in charge right now. And I'm like, where are the women? Come on, let's put some sense into this jigsaw puzzle. And we just cannot afford as a society for women to be passing up their passion and their opportunities in service to something or someone else. So if you are thinking, maybe should I sit on the fence? Should I do it? Just go for it, because you are more capable than you really believe. And I think every woman that's true for.
Does anyone want to add anything?
Can I add a little bit different opinion? Or that so I learned a big lesson or hard lesson. And so almost I almost worked myself to death, literally. And a workaholic, that's rich people. And so there are multiple tasks, and just I say yes to everything: startup, family, being wife, mother, daughter. And also you want to, to go through everything. And I think I learned a lesson, maybe the age, and until one day you really had a crash, and so whether you can handle it or not. So I'm relearning it, and I relearn it, and of course learn how to say no. But actually, most important thing I learned is about it's about your time and energy and align with your value. In addition, the mechanism of management, I have 5 different calendars and all color-coded. That is a skill which is, encourage everyone to not to survive, but, so do the skill. That is a skill you can learn. But a lot of things we don't realize it is, if that's one of my mentors actually taught me this, and say, if you are putting your time and doing something which aligned with your value, you're interested in, and you don't feel that tired, so that's your energy and your time goes. And so there always not, it's time, and there's so many things there, but come back to your core and look at what do I really, what's my value, what I'm trying to achieve, and what I'm doing aligned with my goal. And also align with myself. Everybody is different, and so I was young athlete, benefit from the training. I was able to cope, and until I had a crash later in my life. But some of my friends, they just someone dear to my life, and had a really successful career and passed away in their 40s. So that is, I think, you don't need to wait until the time where a horrible or dramatic thing happen, but live the life which is you think you want to live, and so don't be pushed by other people's goal or what they say about you.
Thanks for sharing that. Perhaps I think what I've heard maybe from the two of you is, to help balance the scales, we should be encouraging everyone, but here we're talking about women, not to say no because I don't think they're good enough to do it, but to say no because it might not be their priority and you've got to prioritise. So it's the reasons that you say yes or no are the important thing. Chloe, you are still young, and so, but it'd be interesting to hear from you whether even in the years since you left school to now, you've seen any changes in STEM, either positive or negative, that either give you hope or make you think that we haven't really made a change yet?
Very interesting question, because yes, I've actually seen a bit of change. I started at Monash in 2019 and I graduated in 2024, and it's 2026 now. I went to Monash Rover the other day, which is 4 years after the Pink Rover launch, and oh my gosh, I was blown away. It was, first of all, so much more pink than I could have ever imagined, which is crazy. It had little mini rovers that were pink. They had pink PCBs, pink cables, pink everything. And they're just, really getting behind it and expanding and amplifying the original message of it being inclusive and the importance of belonging. But the thing that I've seen really shift is an increase in male allyship, and just the way that the men on this team are so articulate on these issues, because the underrepresentation of women in engineering and STEM is not just a problem for women, it's a problem for everybody. And it's something that we all contribute to. Even I have unconscious bias, we all have it. It's just being aware of it and being, brave enough to have those open conversations and ask for help when you need. But I think what really makes a difference is male allyship. Male role models for other men of how to address these problems, how to behave at work, how to support other women. Hey, could you actually just let her finish her point, etc. Things like that. So that has definitely been a huge difference from when I was on the team. And obviously, when I was on the team, it was an amazing team. We wouldn't have a Pink Rover and have all these discussions about women's STEM if the team wasn't already valuing diversity and inclusivity, just to put that out there. So that's one. And I think that's very crucial to, tackling this very multifaceted, deep-rooted structural inequality. The second thing I will say that I've seen to work really well through the Pink Rover as well is breaking stereotypes. And Elly obviously touched on this with Tamara, like Tamara energy, like the sparkly shoes. We need more of that. And I've definitely seen, and there's research to support that breaking stereotypes addresses gender bias and shifts gendered segregated industries. So I take every opportunity when I'm, visible to really just be myself, because I know that it will change the world for someone else. And you all have the power to do that.
Grace, I think one of the things that helps get these things started is either to have intrinsic confidence or to have a mentor or to have some role model or someone else who's already started to tip the scales for you. So I'm thinking about someone early in their career who wants to find that mentor or that person who's been on the scales before them. Do you have any advice?
As I mentioned before, I haven't really had a formal mentor relationship. Like I have attempted to. I've been to networking events where they say you can match up with a mentor, like kind of like dating, and I've been to events where my boss has said, "Oh, this is a great opportunity. Maybe you'll meet someone here." And I haven't been that successful with having a formal mentorship. But looking back in reflection of this question, I realised that along the way there have been many informal mentors. No one person has done it all. Yes, but there have been several key people when I look back now that have had really critical roles in my life for a specific purpose. Based on that, I realise that it's really important to be fully open all the time to this possibility that there are people out there who really actually do want to help you. Most people, I would say everyone in my life has a role, and sometimes that's because of a lesson I need to learn, and sometimes it's because they want to support me maybe up a mountain, up the scales, or maybe it's just to let me know there's another perspective. And so I view that finding a mentor is really about being quite open to what's around you and to be observant about other people. People are teaching you all the time. We just sometimes maybe don't want to know, and sometimes we don't see it because we're really focused on the task, or we're focused on something else. But I think observation of other people and learning from others becomes a really important part, and you can gain that through your colleagues, going to events such as this, going to things you don't normally do. Really, that boldness that came out right at the start, to go to things you don't normally go to because you don't know who you're going to meet and interact with there. Even tonight, this very brief moment beforehand of starting this, I've already met so many incredible people. We're all working in STEM, but we're all so diverse, and I've been really quite inspired already just by this hour or however many hours we've been here of this. So I guess in response to your question, there are formal pathways, yes, and I think you'll see a lot of ads. Also, the Monash alumni on Monash offer a lot of opportunities if your preference is a formal pathway. My personal experience has been that the informal relationships that I've experienced have been very valuable for me personally to grow and also for my career path.
I want to leave a little bit of time for audience questions, but I have one last question. One last question is to allow everyone to say one more thing, but also to think. I think what many of these questions have been about thinking about people coming up on one side of the scale, but what advice do people also have for people who are perhaps more senior in the room to help advocate for women? So one more comment, either answering the advice, what one thing should everyone be doing to help someone else up the scales, or to make any last comment. And maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, for senior people in the room, a lot of mentors that I've had who are very senior in their career, the thing that's really launched me is just saying, yes, I believe in you. So I think when you get behind young women and tell them that I support you no matter what, that makes a huge difference.
Oh, I had a thought and it just went out. In terms of, helping others, I'm thinking back, I guess, to what would have helped myself. Probably very similar. Having someone believe in me is really important. Those early informal mentors, I look back now and they probably were really helping me find my way when I felt a little bit lost. I think it's really important that as women, you know, we are supporting each other. Sometimes I've been in situations where the most challenging people have been women in the room. I don't know what it is, why that is. You know, that saying, oh, you know, women are so critical of each other, and I have been in rooms where that has been the case. I hope that in the future that there can be less of that, because we're all in the same situation, really. We might look different, we come from different background situations, but we have this core connection with each other, sharing similar hormones, similar experiences, of whether it's family life or whether it's other challenges in your career. So I do hope that shared oneness with other women can shine through.
Can I use this time to add on the question related to a mentor? And so I had a fortunate experience to be a mentor and also be mentored, right, mentee. So I want to, let's put it this, so I try to make it short and also connect to the executive, like a senior women or senior people, and including men and women. So there are differences between role model, mentor, and a sponsor. So the role model, I believe, you all have a role model. It's what you cannot be what you cannot see. So you always have, you can imagine or picture, you know, visualize and a role model. So that is different to mentor. I'm a big advocate for mentorship. So that is, you know, so I organize a speed dating type of a mentor and to help people find a mentor. But you don't have to have one formal, and you don't have to only have one, because there is no one person can, you know, help you with different directions of, you meet somebody and give you the mentorship about, say, like, oh, in your career portfolio, this direction, or you transfer to another sector and someone has done that. And so basically it's a mutual, and you respect the person, and you, of course, you have to curate that, right? So you have to have a clear and intent of what you are trying to achieve, and also whether you have the connection and the trust. So that is there. And also mentoring is both ways. So that is you also learn, and I had you know, mentoring somebody become my mentor, right? So that is they don't have to be always senior than you, but they have done something you have not done that before. So they shine the light and help you, give you the direction. But sponsorship is different, which is I'm strongly call out more senior people and be the sponsor and also be the mentor. So the mentor, and it is not someone who is saying, and they behind the theme, and they coach you and help you out and give you the support. Say you can push you out of your uncomfort zone, right? So, but the sponsor is someone who can speak your name, put forward in the where you can go. So I think that is a call, which is, if that is one thing I want to call it out, is say, if you have done something and you're senior in your field or in your experience, and be somebody's sponsor or be somebody's mentor. So that would be mine.
I think just to build on what Grace was saying about, sometimes I think what happens when the women can be the most awful people to work with is that it seems like there's only so many positions available in those slots, right? And the best thing that you can do is not shut the door when you walk into the room, like leave it open. I understand that it feels kind of, I think it's some people's reflex to gatekeep and think like, you know, I'm the only woman here and I'm special, and like, you know, and this is I'm the only person who can do this. But I've seen it quite a lot, and I don't actually think it's very worthwhile. It's not a good investment when you do that, because you don't want to cross the other women in your organisation. Nothing bonds a group of females together better than a common enemy, and I don't think it's a very good long-term investment. So there's nothing to lose by uplifting other younger women in an organisation, and only everything to gain.
That's awesome. In fact, I remember probably the most influential comment I've ever heard at an International Women's Day event, apart from tonight, was to say to everyone, think about over the next 12 months who you're going to lift up, who you're going to say, go for something that you might not even get it the first time, but I believe enough in you that you will gain something from the experience. Don't be crushed if you don't get it, because you might not, but actively think about who you're going to lift up, let's say in the next 12 months, so that next International Women's Day you can say, that's what I've done. There were lots of great questions that came in online, and thank you to those of you who did send questions in advance. We haven't been able to get through all of them, but we do have another few minutes, and I am wondering if anyone in the audience wants to ask any of the panel members a question. Excellent.
Thank you. I did submit a question. Maybe this is a question for Grace, because you're in pharmacy. I have a few friends that actually work in diseases as well. And one thing that I've realized over the last 2 years or 3 years of me doing my own research is that we're very underrepresented historically in medication, just women in general. And I'm just wondering if it's something that you're seeing a change in, especially around hormones and how our cycle works. So I know, for example, one of my friends, she was studying similar diseases to COVID. And she said she doesn't look at the cycle, like it's too hard. She needs to struggle with getting a budget for her work and getting paid and all that. So it's just equal 50-50 men and women. But even the way that we study anything for women doesn't consider our biology. So I just really wanted to see if there's anything happening in this space.
Yeah, it's on.
Hello? Yes. Right. Thank you for that question. It's actually a passion area of mine. At both of my workplaces is something we're extremely interested in. And you're exactly right that historically women have been underrepresented in clinical trials, in research broadly, and we're considered small men, essentially. And then you extrapolate everything and then we assume it's fine. But what's really become apparent that it's not okay, because women and men, I mean, we're different. And it is because of perhaps biology. There are so many things we don't know also. Why? And hormones is something we measure. So yes, it's something that people are really interested in at the moment. How women perceive pain and experience pain, how women present when they have angina or heart attacks. We're only really beginning to see and realise that there are differences. So I would say that we're at the beginning of a journey. There's a long way to go because there's a lot of history to address. And more research and funding to address some of those. But there are diseases that only affect women, that affect women disproportionately or affect women differently. And there are many conditions yet to be explored, I think, because of those three aspects. So I do hope that in my lifetime that I can see more change. I would say that we're at the beginning of the journey, though.
There's quite a few hands. Whoever gets the microphone first.
Thank you. First of all, Chloe, amazing dress. I love the boldness you got there. I mean, I would be really conscious to wear a dress like that, but that's the sparkling, shoes that you got there. So amazing. I really love the boldness that we highlighted instead of the word confidence. But coming to the question, right? My question is to Catherine, right? So I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but the question is related to AI, right? So I've been into AI world myself, being in IT industry for almost 6 years, which is very less, but AI is booming. I am working in AI, but I'm still kind of scared as a woman to put myself out there and speak about it, and to put me as a woman out there, like my face, right? So what leads to this question is about the privacy that we are getting with AI. You did mention sentence that it's people behind AI, right? It's all humans behind AI, which actually caught my attention. We are the data source for AI, right? And they have so many incidences that I have seen where the clothes are getting changed, or the face is the same, but the clothes are getting changed. Sometimes there are no clothes out there. Sometimes the voice is being manipulated and said a non-acceptable word, which is out there in social media. So I'm not sure scared is the right word, but if I'm actually looking forward to start a venture out there to have a face to my voice on the social media, but this is just pulling me back that should I do it in this AI world? Will my face or my voice will be used in the right way going forward? So I would love to hear your comments on that. Thank you.
Well, you addressed quite a few things, and number one, when you say I saw that you're working in AI related for a number of years, but you don't want to put yourself up there. But correct me if I'm wrong, and your question is, should I make myself a face and image and be public visible on social media? And so this is a comeback to this. I think there currently is, I will use this word and I call out of control right now. And so there is the technology and usage and also ethical use and the governance or regulations are way behind what should. So it's technically achievable, but that it should not be done. And so, like a clinical trial, right? And I wrote another paper with the clinical governance with AI, using AI. So that's we had our, with the universities and a research grant, and you often see this is ethical where you have to go through the committee whether you can do it or not, because you're using the data of that's real people and whether you get a consent or not. But right now in the technology AI world, unfortunately, it's not happening. So that is, I am not blaming you, including myself, and I don't want to have this fear, but I do have sincere concern, and a very strong concern, and especially where that is measure or control is not particular, implemented properly on many platforms. So you have to be more careful, and then think about and choose your platform. And also look at what mechanism, what control, and what you can do, or what service do they provide, and so that avoid you get harmed. And also there is now that's many people on a certain platform and has been harassed, and so unfortunately one of my colleagues and daughter got even there. It's a lot of things happen to teenager girls, which is so I do work a lot with the school education system, and that is being an adult, and we need to be more aware, and so that is I don't blame you, and so the question is, do I want to put it there, and for what reason, and think carefully and choose platform carefully. Yeah.
I think we can take one last question. I will say, because I'm not, someone's got the microphone, so that will be the last question, but there will be, it is the last question so that there's time to talk afterwards. And we all will be staying around and people will be standing in their various spots, but I think you'll recognise everybody anyway, but according to their different faculty banners. There's also, by the way, out where we were having drinks before. Sorry for those of you online who didn't have the drinks, but there is a rover and also a safe, which is one of the Monash's key projects in Antarctica. There's specific information out there as well. So there will be more time, but now over to you for the last question.
Elly, what impressed me about what you had to say was that you took whatever opportunity was given to you, but you also married that up with what you believed in. And I think that is very, very... I'm now at the end of my career. I think that is really very, very important. Women tend to hesitate. Men do not. So if you're offered an opportunity, you don't twiddle your thumbs, you take it. And I think that is something so, so important. The other thing is that I faced in my career, looking at a job that I wanted and knowing that there were people older than me, more experienced than me, and I actually said, well, I could be hanged, drawn and quartered. I'm going to put my resume in. I actually got that job. I became the senior psychologist for the state of Victoria. Okay? In my mid-20s. So I'm really pleased that you put forward that idea that you don't hesitate and that you take those opportunities, whatever they are. And you believe in yourself and you believe that you can do it. And I think
thank you so much.
many women hesitate and they lack confidence.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important that we all have that.
That's maybe
congratulations.
Thank you so much for saying that. I think maybe that's a good place to end it. I don't know if I don't think the microphone was working, but the message was, don't hesitate, don't wait. You're not too young. You're not inexperienced. You never know what might happen. So jump at the opportunities that come across your path.
Okay, I will have the last word, I'm sorry, but just really just to thank, well, everyone for coming, but also to thank the four of you. You've I think, really articulated well how there are stereotypes that we should break. We should know when to say yes and when to say no and the right reasons for that. We should help other people onto the scales and help balance them. We should listen to the voice that says try it, even if it's maybe not the right path, but don't hesitate. There are lots of paths and we can try, and if it's the wrong one, you meander along, but that's okay too. That's how you learn. Take opportunities. Don't change to conform, and don't think that you're being told that you have to change or do something else, but give things a go. And I really thank all four of you. It's been a real pleasure to share the stage with you all.
We got gold medal. Yeah.